Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here as always to distill complex global intelligence into clear, essential understanding for you. This week, our focus is squarely on the U.S. space exploration sector. It's really accelerating dramatically. We're seeing intense commercial competition, some unexpected regulatory hurdles, and truly historic planetary ambitions all coming together in just the past week. Now, this in-depth briefing is made possible by our sponsor, ProWave AI. They're the advanced intelligence engine really powering the future of enterprise decision-making.
And the analysis you're about to hear, it's the result of some pretty sophisticated global intelligence processing. This deep dive is generated by Stylo News. That's the AI-powered application synthesizing information from, I believe, over 250 sources and 20 languages. It gives you a really comprehensive and timely picture of these critical events.
Okay, let's dive in. We begin with what's arguably the highest priority program right now, NASA's Artemis mission. The goal, of course, is returning American astronauts to the moon by 2027. But the core conflict, the main tension point, seems to be a bottleneck. It's both contractual and technical, and it centers on the Human Landing System, the HLS.
That's right. And that bottleneck, as our sources are indicating, it stems directly from the sole source contract awarded back in 2021 to SpaceX. That was a $2.9 billion deal for their Starship HLS. Now, despite really impressive progress, we're talking 49 defined milestones met, 11 Starship test flights already. The acting NASA administrator, Sean Duffy, he has voiced some significant unease.
And the unease isn't about the rocket itself, fundamentally.
Not exactly. The major technical hurdle, the real sticking point, is the development of this incredibly complex in-space refueling technology. Starship, you see, it needs dozens, literally dozens of fuel transfers up in Earth orbit just to gather enough propellant to make the trip to the moon, land safely, and then come back.
Dozens. That's quite an operational challenge.
It absolutely is. And without that orbital fuel transfer being proven reliable technology, the whole lunar mission is effectively, stuck. It can't proceed as planned.
And this technical worry translates directly into strategic pressure, doesn't it? Duffy's got China's timeline looming. They're aiming for their own astronauts on the moon by 2030.
Precisely. So, facing that competitive clock, Duffy took a pretty bold step. He announced NASA is reopening the lunar lander contract to outside competition.
That is a dramatic move, reopening a major sole source contract like that.
It really is, and it raises a fascinating question for you, the listener. How difficult is it, politically and legally, for NASA to pivot away from a sole source contract of this magnitude? It suggests the urgency, the geopolitical race maybe, is starting to override some of the standard acquisition procedures.
How did SpaceX react? Elon Musk.
Well, Elon Musk, representing SpaceX, he pushed back publicly. He criticized NASA leadership's comments, essentially calling them uninformed. He defended Starship's unique capabilities, particularly its massive payload capacity.
But SpaceX isn't just defending the current plan, are they? They're actually proposing changes to speed things up.
Correct. They're suggesting a simplified mission architecture. The sources we have suggest this simplification might target the orbital mechanics, maybe the complexity of the lander for the first crewed landing. So instead of the full complex HLS right away, perhaps a slightly simpler, maybe partially reusable Starship version. Something designed just to meet the immediate critical goals.
So potentially fewer refueling launches needed, or a streamlined test sequence.
Potentially, yes. It seems like they're prioritizing getting boots on the moon faster over demonstrating the full final operational robustness of the original HLS design right out of the gate. They're aiming to hit those critical tests like the propellant transfer sometime in 2026.
Okay, so that definitely puts NASA at a crossroads. Path one is the SpaceX path. Stick with them. Go with the simplified architecture. Target those critical tests in 26.
Right. And path two is the competition path. NASA is now actively soliciting alternative proposals, and we're seeing competitors step up. Blue Origin, for example, is offering a hybrid lander. Their design might potentially require fewer launches and, crucially, bypass that complicated orbital refueling sequence entirely.
Interesting. Any others?
Yes. Lockheed Martin has also put forward a concept. They're proposing a two-stage lander that would leverage proven propulsion systems and components already developed for the Orion capsule program.
Ah, using existing hardware.
Exactly. Their argument is that using flight-proven components minimizes the development risk and could significantly shorten the timeline. Less invention required, basically.
An international community must be watching this very closely.
Oh, absolutely. NASA's urgency here feels purely geopolitical, driven by China's lunar ambitions.
Yeah.
But our international partners, the European Space Agency, JAXA from Japan, the Canadian Space Agency, they're monitoring this intensely. It's not just for updates. Their own contributions, their hardware and support missions depend on the stability of this Artemis timeline.
So for them, it's less about who builds the lander.
And more about needing sustained, predictable progress. They need to know the schedule won't slip dramatically, otherwise their joint missions face costly delays and rescheduling.
Okay, let's shift gears now. From the high-level policy and ambition down to the operational reality on the ground, we're seeing an incredible volume of space activity, especially down on Florida's Space Coast. They're actually approaching a record, potentially 93 launches this year alone.
The pace is just redefining the industry. SpaceX, for instance, recently celebrated its 100th Starlink launch just for 2025. That's incredible cadence. And just recently, the Space Coast attempted a rare doubleheader trying to launch both SpaceX and ULA vehicles within a very short window, basically 1 week.
That must be a boost for the local economy down there.
Undeniably. But it also puts immense strain on everything else: logistics, coordinating airspace, not to mention the environmental review processes that have to keep up.
And this blistering pace has just run headlong into a major regulatory wall this week, hasn't it? Tied to the U.S. government shutdown.
That's right. The Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, issued an emergency order. It took effect November 10th.
And what does this order do?
It's causing, frankly, operational chaos across the launch sites. It restricts all commercial launches and reentries to a very tight nighttime window, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. local time.
Why nighttime only?
The FAA's reasoning, stemming from reduced staffing during the shutdown, is about ensuring aircraft safety and keeping the airspace efficient. Managing daytime launches apparently requires significantly more coordination staff, which they don't have full access to right now. So this mandates immediate, complex rescheduling at all the major sites: Cape Canaveral, Vandenberg. You can imagine the logistical nightmare this creates. Crew rest cycles, ground ops, handling sensitive cargo. It's a huge disruption.
And speaking of disruptions in leadership, there was also significant political news concerning NASA's top job.
Yes, President Trump announced the renomination of Jared Isaacman to be the next NASA administrator.
Isaacman, the private astronaut, flew Inspiration 4 and the Polaris Dawn missions with SpaceX.
The very same. He's seen as a key SpaceX ally. This choice signals a very clear policy direction focused on accelerating crewed missions and really deepening NASA's reliance on the private sector for its core operations.
How are the news sources framing all this activity and these tensions?
It's interesting. You see reports from places like UPI and Space War really emphasizing the record-breaking pace, the competitive energy, sort of applauding the private sector's speed. But then other articles, particularly those mentioning the U.S. Air Force launch suspensions or the FAA curfew, they highlight the friction, the tension between this rapid commercial push and the institutional needs, the safety requirements, the ecological concerns, now all compounded by this administrative shutdown issue.
Okay, let's look beyond Earth orbit now. What's happening with missions further out? Mars.
Yes, Mars saw a significant development this week. Blue Origin successfully completed the second flight of its heavy-lift rocket, New Glenn. That was on November 9th. And this wasn't just a test flight. It carried a real payload, NASA's low-cost ESCAPADE mission. That's a pair of twin satellites designed to go to Mars and study its atmosphere.
And getting that launched successfully is a big deal, especially given the recent weather issues and that new FAA curfew we just talked about.
Exactly. It shows they could navigate those hurdles. But beyond just reaching orbit, the mission included another really critical component. They attempted to recover the New Glenn first-stage booster at sea.
The booster recovery. That's the capability that SpaceX has really mastered, but others are still chasing.
Precisely. Recovering and reusing these large boosters is key to lowering launch costs. Blue Origin's CEO, Dave Limp, was quick to emphasize their commitment to innovative, sustainable spacecraft architectures. Achieving booster reuse is foundational to that vision, and obviously to supporting NASA's goals affordably.
And while these missions launch, the private sector is also building the future infrastructure needed in space, right?
Yes, two key developments stood out this week on that front. First, Elon Musk announced some pretty ambitious plans to repurpose the newer, larger Starlink V3 satellites
Repurpose them for what?
as dedicated space-based data centers.
Data centers in orbit. How does that work?
Well, the V3 satellites use laser intersatellite links, essentially optical fiber connections, but in space. Data travels much faster through the vacuum of space than through terrestrial fiber optic cables. So the idea is, by repurposing them for AI workloads, you could process massive amounts of data directly in orbit, potentially bypassing slower ground infrastructure altogether for certain
This
tasks.
is a fundamental shift.
Yeah.
And you mentioned another piece of infrastructure.
Yes, also this week, SpaceX launched the Haven demo satellite. This is a critical test platform for a company called Vast Space. VAST is planning its own private space station called Haven 1, which they expect to have operational by 2026. So this demo launch is a key step towards that.
So the move away from purely government-owned space stations towards commercially built habitats, that's clearly picking up steam.
Definitely accelerating. Okay, as we sort of wrap up this exploration of the week's events, here are maybe three key developments for you, the listener, to keep an eye on in the coming months. These will really shape the immediate future of space.
All right, what should we be watching?
First, Starship V3. SpaceX is literally demolishing its current Starbase launch pad down in Texas right now. They're preparing it for the next iteration, the larger Starship V3 rocket. V3 signifies an anticipated design upgrade, more payload capacity, potentially a simpler structure. It's the critical vehicle for their lunar plans and eventually their Mars ambitions. Expect updates on its progress throughout 2026.
Okay, Starship V3, what's second?
Second, that lunar contract decision we discussed earlier. NASA's evaluation of the different proposals, SpaceX's simplified plan versus Blue Origin, Lockheed Martin, maybe others, and the potential formal reopening of the Human Landing System contract. That decision is expected probably late 2025 or early 2026, and it will essentially lock in the hardware path for the next, say, half-decade of U.S. lunar exploration. It's huge.
A very pivotal decision. And the third thing?
Finally, keep an eye out for Artemis II. This is the crucial crewed lunar orbit mission. It'll be the first time astronauts circle the moon in over 50 years. It's currently targeted for no earlier than February 2026. Any slips in that schedule will have major ripple effects.
Starship V3, the HLS contract decision, and Artemis II.
Yeah.
Got it. Now, this ability to track and synthesize all this complex, fast-moving global intelligence across different fields, commercial, technical, geopolitical, it really brings us back to the technology that made this rapid analysis possible. Stylo News.
Right. And Stylo News, it's important to understand it's not just another news feed scrolling by. It's an application for your mobile device or computer that delivers personalized intelligence briefs directly to you. You can think of it almost like having your own custom research team, constantly monitoring the world based on your interests.
So how does it work? What's the engine behind it?
The Stylo AI engine is constantly gathering and, crucially, organizing content. It pulls from hundreds of traditional news sources globally, plus social platforms like X, across multiple languages.
And when you ask it a question?
That's the key difference. It doesn't just give you a list of links like a web search. It provides precise, understandable answers that are based directly on that verified source material it has processed. And importantly, it gives you source-linked citations for everything, so you know where the information came from, you can check it yourself. It ensures you get explainable, accurate results without having to wade through all the noise online.
So if tracking global events or specific fields like space exploration, with this kind of speed, detail, and reliability is important to you,
then we really encourage you to check out Stylo News.
you can get AI-powered news tailored to you on demand by subscribing today. Just go to www.stylonews.com. That's STYLO news.com. All right, that concludes our deep dive for this week, looking at the accelerating pace of the commercial space sector and all the pressures, technical, competitive, geopolitical, that are shaping its future right now. Thank you, truly, for joining us in this exploration.
Yes, thank you. And we do invite you to stay engaged with us. If there's a particular topic, maybe something complex you're trying to get your head around that you'd like to see explored in a future deep dive, please let us know. You can submit requests and also follow Stylo News on your favorite social media platforms for ongoing updates and analysis.
Until next time, stay well informed.